I am good. And how are you doing?
I am good too.
Yeah, so you've been rolling, continue to roll with Better Call Daddy there.
I am, man. That is a key is consistency, right? Staying with it when you want to quit.
Do you ever feel like that sometimes?
Oh, yeah. I just started running, and you'll appreciate this because you're into fitness.
Hmm.
And I love the trainers who are like, right when you don't want to go to the end is when you got to push harder.
Yeah.
Like you have to complete your goals. And I'm good as long as like I make the hard part of the run. And then if I can't do the warm down, I'm like, okay, that's okay. Like I can
Yeah.
skip the like walking inverted or, bringing my legs up in the back, my knees up at the front. I'm like, I can
Yeah.
skip that. Like I can rid myself of like the warm down. If I warm up and if I do the full run, then I'm like, there's a little leeway at the end with the
Yeah.
stretches.
Yeah. I hear you. I think I sometimes feel that way too with like doing a show. It's like sometimes you're like, I don't want to do this. you know?
Well, there's so many ups and downs. Like I reached out to somebody who I really wanted for the 200th episode, and she said yes. And she wrote me back like yes, like 3 times. And then today I like secured a client that wanted me to do a shoot for them on Friday. And then I got her backing out saying that she's too busy. I was
Yeah.
like, too
Yeah.
busy, but she told me yes 3 times. Okay. I mean, you give people the benefit of
Well,
the doubt, but it was
sure.
like some good with some bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important to talk about this because I think we're in kind of an online environment where everybody puts like the best version of what's going on versus like let's talk about some stuff that's not so great. So what takes you to this place sometimes beyond just what you told me? There's just some like a feeling sometimes you're like, I don't want to do it, or are there other reasons?
Well, when I've got 10 episodes in the can and guests reaching out to me and they're like, where's my episode? And I'm like, I still
Oh,
haven't marketed the two that I just published.
yeah,
And I have paid client work coming in that I'm putting before that,
of course. Of
you
course.
know,
Yeah.
or just, you know, you got to phrase things in a positive light, right? I was talking to somebody else that wanted me to come up with 5 ways to be a good podcast host. And so we got on that whole topic of should everybody even be one, right?
Mm. Mm. Well, that's interesting. I mean,
Yeah. And what you learn in helping other people produce their shows.
hmm,
And how can you make people look good?
yeah,
You have to play to their strengths. You have to know how much scripting and unscripting and research needs to go
hmm,
into the show.
right, right,
For you, you've done so many interviews and you're very comfortable on the fly, but for a
yeah.
lot of people, they hit the record button and pause.
Oh, have you noticed that a lot? That people kind of freeze up a little bit, or they have a hard time sometimes?
I have seen that with some people. And then you have to make them feel comfortable, and then you have to
Yeah.
remind them of who they are and what's important to them,
Yes.
bring them kind of back down to earth.
What do you think it is about that kind of lights, camera, action thing once it starts? What is that?
I've actually experienced it too, so I can tell you a
Mm.
little bit. It's different being behind the scenes. It's like when those
Mhm.
lights are shining on you, it doesn't feel like a conversation. It feels like
Uh,
you have to be more proper, more edited.
yeah.
But the more you practice, the more conversations you have, you just feel freer in talking.
I agree. I totally agree. I never think about it either way. I just roll into it, man. Yeah.
I mean, do you look back on your earlier episodes now, though, and see that you've made progress? There has to be
Yeah,
progress.
yeah, of course. I think in the beginning, I just didn't really know what it was. I was like, what is this? And I felt like I always ask good questions and stuff and I get better. It's more automatic, but I think like just not knowing where it's going. And to some extent, I still don't know where it's going. I mean, 400, I'm about to hit 400 episodes and I'm kind of like, well, what's the point? Sometimes. And I think it's like may always for me, I always come back to this just good conversation with someone. That's really the point for me. How can I get educated through talking to a lot of different people. You know,
It does enhance your life.
it
And
does.
there's tidbits in each episode where you're like, oh, that's quotable.
Yeah, I think so. And but I do have moments like where I'm like, man, when is this going to be over? I do think that sometimes. I'm like, what's the end game? Like, how long am I going to do this? But then I'm kind of like, I really enjoy doing this. You know, even if you love something, sometimes you don't want to do it, you know.
Oh yeah. I actually loved, I think it was one of your last episodes
Mhm.
where he said, do more good things than bad things
Yeah,
and
yeah,
simplify everything.
yeah.
Those two things are such simple ideas, but really great. I actually retweeted
Yeah,
just those two little quotes from your last episode. I was
yeah,
like, that is so true. Like, how many businesses have a hard time simplifying their message where anyone can understand what they do?
yeah. I mean, I think he was also saying like the smartest people he knows simplify things. Don't try to make things so complicated. Sometimes I think in my mind, I try to do that with the podcast, like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. I'm like, no, I just need to show up. I just need to talk to people and create good relationships. And wherever it goes, it goes, you know?
And I'm sure by all of these relationships that you've created, things have come your way that you just completely would have never foreseen.
Yeah. I think mostly it's just meeting good people. Every once in a while, it may be something else, but mostly it's just having other people to connect with on a regular basis if I want to, or if they want to, you know, type of thing.
Do people come to you and tell you the ideas that they have for starting their own show? And then a lot of times it goes nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody, you know, it's funny. It's like months later, like I started my own podcast. I'm like, that's great, you know, and I just think it's hard to keep doing it. Podcasting to me is one of the harder things to do to be consistent at because there's a lot involved with it. I mean, how do you view that?
Right. Actually, this woman just asked me last night. She was like, what about it don't you like? So I love
Mhm.
having the conversations like you. Like, I'm an
Yeah,
extrovert and I love the relationship
yeah,
building side of it. I
yeah,
could do that all day long, but
yeah, yeah,
the creating the summaries and the repurposing the content and sending it to all the guests and following up with them, and that part is a lot of work for me. I wish I
yeah.
had somebody to do that well, like I do it.
Yeah, I feel it's the exact same way. And I think my recent issue is that I just in general really don't like social media. The so like
The
I'm
social doctor doesn't like
yeah,
social media.
I don't like it. I really don't like the current version of it. Which is why I reached out to you about this other thing that I'm doing. But like I struggle with promoting on all these sites because like internally, I have this conflict where I just don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. And then
And
when I
I
do it,
get
I never
roped
feel good
in
about it.
to these, like you'll see on Instagram,
Mhm.
shout out Wednesday and like
Yeah, yeah.
tag 10 other podcasts. And then everybody who tags me, I'm like out signing them back under the
Yeah.
post and like
Yeah.
high fiving them all and like following them all and then checking do they follow me back. And I
Yeah.
fall into that shenanigans. And like,
Mm.
you really honestly, if you want to grow, have to play into some of that. I mean,
Yeah.
look, you've got 17,000 followers on LinkedIn. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
played into any of that, but
No.
if I see you interview somebody that I like, I might reach out to them and say, hey, I saw that you
Yeah.
were on Dr. Darian's. I vibed with what you said. I like
Right.
him. Let's connect.
Right.
I do that a lot actually with
Hmm.
people that I like talking to.
Yeah.
I proactively do that.
Yes. I think that's a good thing. I just man, I have a deep internal conflict with the posting and all this stuff to in order to grow. And I keep thinking to myself, why do I have this issue? What is there deep inside me that keeps telling me this feels not good to me? I don't know what it is. I don't
I
know.
can relate to that too, because I'm like, I'm getting business.
Hmm.
I am growing slowly. Why do I need to grow to a point where I can't even manage it even more?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why can't I be happy with the journey? Why can't I be happy exactly with where I'm at
Yeah.
and nurture where I'm at?
Yeah. I think it's a
What
big
is the
human question.
pressure to have a zillion freaking followers
What is the
everywhere?
pressure? Yes, this whole thing is like everyone's striving for to reach some point, whatever that means. I don't even know what that means. It just doesn't feel right to me. I don't know what it is, Rena. It just like the other day I canceled my Twitter account because just for my podcast. I was like deactivate. I was like, I don't care about this. I just don't
I
care about it.
Yeah, I don't even use the Better Call Daddy one because there was some sicko that had like Better
Oh,
Call Daddy. So I had to do like Better Call Dad one. I was like, oh, this is so like, is
oh
anybody
no,
even gonna like
yeah,
find that?
yeah, yeah,
I was like, everybody follows mainly my name, like Reena
yeah.
Friedman Watts. That account is more followed on Facebook. That account is more followed
Sure.
on Instagram. That account is my LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Do you need to own Better Call Daddy on Facebook? Do you need to own Better Call Daddy on TikTok? I mean,
Yeah.
probably just so some sicko doesn't have Better Call Daddy, but
Right.
it's hard to
Yeah.
be everywhere.
It's
I
hard
am
to be
so
everywhere.
I'm so inner like conflicted with that as well. And I also like when you were talking about it, it kind of reminded me of when I worked in television. I'm
Okay.
like, how many shows do I need to work on before I feel like I've made it? Like, how many
Yeah.
times do I need to have my name in the credits to be like, okay, I
Yeah.
worked in television? And I thought that I got it out of my system. I thought, having worked for VH1 and
Yeah.
Fox and the Kyoto brothers and Jerry Springer and all these shows, I thought I was ready to like have that next chapter, like get married,
Yeah.
have kids, stay home, do that. But then I was like, then I like tiptoed my way back in. And now I had somebody contact me literally Wednesday night and was like, I need a commercial by Monday. Can you do it? I'm like,
Yeah.
of course I
Yeah.
can do it. Like,
Yeah.
hold the hoop, I'll jump through it. Right.
Right. Right.
What is
Yeah.
that?
What is I feel like I'm having kind of this existential feeling about this. But I feel like none of us are talking about it openly in a forum like this. We're just all kind of climbing some ladder to where? Where are we
Oh my
going?
God. I'm with you.
Like where are we going? Like I have a good, training business. I'm good. I'm not really pushing on. I'm like, where am I going? Like what is and that's why I always come back to I'm having good conversations. I'm meeting Renas of the world. I'm meeting all these wonderful people who I've just become friendly with. And I think I just need to focus on that because the more I think about the other stuff, it just feels so wrong to me. Like I have an Instagram for my podcast. Honestly, I hate it. I just do. I don't even like posting on it. I'm like, how much longer am I going to keep this? Like,
You
just feels
gotta listen to
inauthentic to
that
me.
too.
I
You
think
gotta
so.
listen to that a little bit.
Yeah, because the world says you need to do all these things to grow. And I'm like, I know, I get it. I just, what if you're told to do something to get a result, but you're against doing it in some way, like,
I mean, my own daughter told me this past week that everybody in her math class did the problem a different way and that she counted all the boxes on the graph and
yeah.
got the answer the same way, but it took her longer. I was like, if you figured out some creative way to count the boxes and do it, and you got the same answer,
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a difficult thing. So actually, I love talking to other podcasters. I'm curious to like, it's conversational. Where is it going? You see all the guests and stuff, but you wonder like, how do they feel about the whole thing?
Yeah. And lately, because I feel like last year I like really put work first. I put customers first. It was like
Uh-huh.
all of these people coming my way for help. I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. Oh, I could do that. Oh, let me try
Yeah.
that. And I really put my health second. And I was like, I'm going to start taking things off my calendar. I'm going to
Yeah.
start making sure I run every day. I'm going to like see, I want to try the like getting into the flow of life a little bit and see like what things come my way. I did
What's
a
this life
volunteer
thing?
opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like volunteered last week. I like took
Yeah.
different routes to a new coffee shop. I paid for some Katie Couric tickets that I wouldn't
Yeah.
normally do. I think it's really important sometimes to try new things, see what you don't like, go new routes, talk to different
Yeah.
people. you got to take time for that too, like
I
a
think
little
so.
bit of a recharge.
I think so. And I think I'm having this very large thing where I don't like that you feel like you have to document all of your life all the time. Like I don't do that anyways, but I feel like it's unhealthy. And if you constantly have this pressure to post, to go somewhere that we may not even know what that means, that just doesn't feel native to me. Like you said, I think you got to follow that, you know. And whenever you follow your gut, your instinct, or whatever, you always feel better about it, regardless of what it leads to. It's like, oh, I'm listening to me, you know.
Yes. And I think that I, from starting to run, have started to get more in tune with my mind. I
Yeah.
really am starting to feel a rhythm between my mind and my body.
In what
It's
ways?
so
Tell me.
weird.
I'd love to hear that, a little more about that.
Yeah, I think there is a rhythm. Like when you oxygenate your body
Mm-hmm.
and you get that blood flowing and you
For
start your
sure.
day like that, and you don't have your phone nearby and
Mm-hmm.
you're just focusing on leaning a little bit forward or not bouncing so much or
Yeah.
taking the right strides and just
Yeah.
letting the ideas flow through your mind.
Yeah. That is a more technical term. It's just association versus disassociation. You know, most of the world is disassociating. So you're trying to do something that distracts you from the thing you're actually doing. And
Yeah, there's
so,
some rhythm to that.
yeah, an association is much less done where you focus on, let's say, an exercise, your breathing, the rhythm, the count of your steps, everything. And you actually become one with that versus listening to something that distracts you from the movements you're doing, you
It
know?
can be, yeah, like I feel like synchronistic.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know what this means, but I feel like I need to follow whatever it is. And I like doing my podcast, but I feel like it was almost better when I didn't have this other stuff as well. Because I didn't care about, like, you know what it is? Because you got to post it to all these places. And I always felt it was better when I just had the conversation and I sent the guests, you know, here's the links. And I was like, peace, I'm done. Here we did our thing. You know, it's going to be what it's going to be. I'll send it out to maybe on LinkedIn or something. Then I'm done, man. You know, I'm like, I don't know.
What I've discovered lately is if somebody who you've interviewed does a cool post that you like,
Yeah.
you can share their post and then link to the episode with them.
Right.
So I interviewed a guy who was the backup dancer to Madonna, and he did a post recently where he had his two little beautiful twin daughters
Oh, nice.
by his side. And he said he had two daddy's girls. I was like, I literally just took that quote and was like, two daddy's girls. And to hear his story
Yeah.
about that, click here.
That's a great
So
idea.
you can repurpose other people's things. So I had like this body positivity model on. She's a
Yeah.
plus size model. I love her
That's
vibe.
great.
I love her story. And she showed pictures of, you know, when she was chubby as a kid. And she was like, they told me I never model. They told me I'd never get any pictures taken of me because I had too many freckles. And she did like this whole reel of all of these parts of her life where they told her she couldn't, and then it
Yeah.
led to her working with all of these brands, and it was like such a great reel. I just
Right.
shared that. I was like, love body positivity, here's the link to her full story. And I started doing more of that, and it takes some of the pressure off of me having to come up with so many damn
Yeah.
posts.
I know, man. It's true. No, that's a good idea. It's actually a really good idea. What do you use from like your TV days with your podcast that you think maybe is unique from other people?
That's a great question. I would say for my TV days, I come up with creative titles.
I see.
So from something that we talk about, like you just said, I don't like social media, but yet your
Yeah.
name is Dr. You know, social.
Yeah.
That could be a title right there. I have conversations with people all the time and I'm like, whoa, write that down. There's the
Yeah.
title.
Yeah.
Or even when I'm re-listening to it, I'm like, oh, there's the title. So I think that is from my TV days. Also, you don't edit like I do. I
Right.
cut
Right.
out parts of the conversation
Yes.
that's
Right. Right.
repetitive.
Right.
Like, and my editor that I work with gets that too, because she also has a television background. There are parts always in a conversation that you say more than once. There are
Yeah, that's
things
true.
that can be cut out. And so I feel like my post-production background kind of taught me you can simplify.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's true. There are parts that are similar, kind of repetitive with that. What have you, so you've done 200 or you're right around there at this point?
Yeah, I'm right around there.
So have you reflected about your journey in the 200? And if you have, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, so in the beginning, speaking of simplification, I have a very short attention span. So my interviews were a lot shorter. And part of why I'm not editing is because I could literally always cut more. Like I can cut and cut and cut. I could make each
Yeah,
episode 15 minutes.
right.
And so they were much snappier in the beginning. But then I realized, like, I think they might be too fast for some people. Like,
Hmm.
just because I like it snappy doesn't mean that other people don't want more. It's kind of like when I tried stand up a couple times.
Okay.
Like, the first time I got up there and told my story, I got some laughs. And then I tried
Yeah.
to edit out the not funny parts. And then the second time I got no laughs. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, you got to have the buildup in there. You got to have a little bit
Yeah.
of the lulls. You got to have a little bit of the not funny part to get to the funny part.
Right. Right. No, that makes sense. Yeah, it's just I'm curious. I mean, you worked on a lot of different shows and podcasting's all the rage. Like everyone has a podcast now.
It
Literally,
seems
like
that way.
everyone is like trying to do one. And what's the goal of it? I always just go back to that. But
That's a great question for
you know,
me.
yeah,
Honestly, my favorite part of my whole podcast is that I get special time with my dad and we
that's
get to talk
awesome.
about things that we've never talked about before.
See,
Like,
that's amazing.
yeah,
That's amazing.
I win.
Yeah, you get to talk to your dad more about some interesting stuff. Like,
I get to talk to my dad about interesting stuff, and I'm including my daughter. So she's
yep,
getting to talk to some of my fun guests. I'm getting
yep,
ready to
yep.
interview a guy who's the food freak, and my older son is like super into food preparation. So I'm
Right.
like, maybe I can actually like relate to him, about something at 13. I feel like I've been able to include my entire family in this. And I'm like, how awesome is this going to be for my kids
Yeah,
later? It's going to be such a legacy of like how my dad would answer all of these kinds of subjects.
yeah. That's really great. I mean, I've been retooling, so I'm going to start scheduling in the new year a lot less episodes, but I'm going to basically primarily have episodes with people who I love talking to, because I think it'll just be more authentic. Like one of my guys, I've done like a 12 albums project. So he did 12 albums and we've reviewed every album that he did of the 12. And we became like amazing friends through the process, which is such a gift. And we love 80s movies, like bad 80s movies. So another segment in my podcast is going to be called Arbiters of Bad Taste, where we review like 80s movies. Like, I don't know why we're doing it, just because we just want to do more stuff together. We just want to spend more time together.
Look,
And,
it's all about energy. It is
yeah,
all about how excited you are about what you're talking about and how
yes,
excited the people are that you're talking to. So if
yes,
that's cool to you, bring it.
yeah. I think it's just, honestly, I think we just do it for fun. Just us and having a good time. And I think that's kind of the wraparound is like, for any podcasters listening, it's like, what is your why? What's the goal? And I know so much people have this large goal of monetization for podcasts, but very few podcasters actually can do that. So, you know,
I mean, I see these questions on Twitter like, what do you want in the new year for your podcast? And people are
yeah,
like, more listeners, monetization, better guests. I mean,
yeah,
everyone wants that.
yeah,
But if they were to focus on having fun, letting loose,
yes,
talking about something that they're passionate about,
Most definitely.
that would come.
Yeah, I think so. It's just a funny thing to do, and I'm always curious how other podcasters navigate the guest action. So, and your podcast is awesome because you get like really amazing guests, like really distinctive people. So I think it'd be good for the people who are podcasters who are listening. How do you go about finding guests on your podcast?
So that does go back to my TV roots too. Like I
Yeah.
worked in
Okay.
casting. I love finding a good story.
Great.
Lately, so many people have been sending me guests.
Yes.
And, if I have a potential client that sends me someone,
Yeah.
that enhances my relationship with them. So I'm going to do it.
Right.
Or my husband, he's like hyper intellectual and he
Right.
listens to a ton of things and he knows who I'm looking for. He's sent me somebody. He found some guy. His name is Plant-Based Ben. And he's
Yeah.
like, do you know him?
I don't know who this is, but it sounds
He's an
interesting.
Instagrammer
Uh-huh.
and he's an anti-vaxxer
Yeah.
and he's a fitness guy. I was
Yeah.
like,
What a
I want to
combination.
talk to him and he's local. Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to know
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah. We have a
So my husband got
similar.
me him, and the food freak came from Briner Agassi. He was a drummer that was on my show.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are starting to send me really interesting people. I had another lady, Dr. Randall. She sent me a lady who started an orphanage. So if it's something that I know nothing about and
Yeah.
it's interesting, yeah, I feel like I don't want to go after people that everyone else has interviewed.
Yes. Yes. You know what? That's a good point, actually. I think, and it's definitely something I try to do myself. Oh, I just kind of go off of feel. Like you, I get sent a lot of people. I think I think I said this when I was on your podcast. Like I say no a lot. And I think I have accelerated my no saying. It's even worse now, Reena. I'm saying no like 90% of the time. It like really has to grab me.
I have a
Like
heart, like I want to accelerate the no. That's a good title.
yeah. Accelerate the nose. That's a title. Oh, so right.
It's true. I have to
Uh,
say, if someone cancels that I wasn't super excited about, there's
yeah.
not a very good chance they're getting back on the
I
calendar.
feel the same way. I'm the
I was
same
like,
exact
thank
way.
you, God.
Yeah, yeah. That happens to me. Sometimes I have something going, I'm like, I'm not sure if this is going to be that interesting. And then it doesn't happen. I was like, no, that's fine.
Totally.
Yeah. And I think what space was I in where I wanted to do that? Like where I wanted to book that. What was the space I was in? So like I think I'm always evolving my guest or casting in a sense, like how I want to do this. But then I always have these crazy ideas of like shows I want to do. And I'm like, do I really want to do this? Like,
I say if you have an idea, though, go for it.
yeah,
Although I'm going to say, I watched this documentary with my daughter and I got all excited because I reached out to the main star in there and she's the one that just canceled, but she did tell
yeah,
me, yes, we are connected. She's been on some huge shows.
yeah,
But I'm like, it has happened for me in the past. Like me and my daughter watched Indian Matchmaking and then I reached out to all of the people on
yeah,
it and 4 people said yes. You know what? I could reach out to other people from the show.
yeah,
So I think if you have an idea, try it. I literally have been doing so much more of that. Evan Carmichael says that. He's like, I'm running out of, he's like, I don't even have any more ideas because as soon as I
yeah,
have one, I try it.
right. Yeah. I like that. I love your approach to all this stuff. It's like finding people who not a lot of people have talked to is a very
People
different way.
post very emotional things in comments. I saw this
Yeah.
girl post that she knocked her front teeth out. And once she realized that she was single and didn't have her teeth, how much that affected her confidence. I was like,
Mm,
that is such an interesting perspective to confidence. Like, what
yeah.
do your teeth mean to you? And then
Right.
people with teeth problems from all around the world started
Wow.
reaching out to her. Like, there's some people in other countries that don't even fix their teeth. Like, we live in a
That's
country
true.
with
That's
so many
true.
like perfect veneers. But in other
Totally true.
countries, a little gap like mine is normal, you know?
Right.
So,
Totally true. I just love that. I think there's just a lot to be learned from seasoned podcasters too. Like it's very rare, at least I see it's rare that someone like you and me who have a very large podcast queue, things actually talk about the process of it, because there's so many people starting. And I think there's this gusto when you start, this big gusto, like, man, I'm going to have all these listeners. It's really a slow process. It's very slow
oh my
process.
God. And how many interviews do you do in the beginning? You're like, I've got 50 in the queue. And then you're like, some of them aren't good though. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
should I even air that one? I mean, have you not aired them? Like I have some I just never aired.
Really? What do you say to the people when do they ask you about it?
A few have, and if they're listening right now, truthfully, sometimes it's been audio quality.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
You know, if you're walking around and you've got earbuds on and I hear vacuum cleaners and kids, like
Yeah.
it doesn't sound good.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
love you and thanks for being a part of the beginning of my journey and process. But
Yeah.
I'm glad we had the conversation. It doesn't have to air.
Oh, that's funny. And I much like that, I give everybody a lot of heads up usually. I'm like, hey, unless they're like a very seasoned pro, and I'm like, they know the deal. I mean, they're not gonna come unprepared. But for a lot of people who are guests, they don't naturally usually know like the etiquette. And you get people who may have like a larger deal and they just come on with like the speaker. I'm like, the microphone? No. Like they
That
just
has happened to me
man.
actually. Somebody with a big show,
Yeah.
like they have a studio. And then when I interviewed them, they were doing it from home from their computer monitor. I was like,
Yeah. They
thanks.
they just downgraded your whole thing. But their thing was like really high, It's like, what is that? It's like, come on. Yeah.
I
So
do think it's interesting that you said you're constantly evolving
yeah.
because, and that it's a slow journey. I really like that you're talking about that because until you've done at least 50 episodes, I
Yeah.
think that you're going to suck.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. I know you have to get repetitions, much like you do like with an exercise if you're lifting weights and all that stuff. You have to put in the reps for it. But I also think you have to be prepared for it becoming something else potentially. Maybe like you have a brand and stuff, but like you just may feel differently about it. And I always tell people like it's okay if like it becomes something else that you didn't intend it to be, or if what you're doing just doesn't feel good anymore. It's okay to change it, you know?
I saw a post about that today where the Binge Factor host, I don't know if you've seen that podcast, but
Mm-mm.
she was talking about how it's okay to change the title of your show.
Yeah.
Because once you have the listeners and once you have the RSS feed, it's just moving forward of the people who are
Yeah.
going to see the new title, but your followers are following you.
Yeah.
But then I was just thinking, I'm like, well, my daddy is like the theme of the show. Like
Yeah.
people want to
Yeah.
know what he says at the end. So like, I'm not changing that. But then I
Yeah.
was thinking, I did do a week where I did an Indian matchmaking takeover. And
Yeah.
I was thinking of doing a week or two of like a healthcare takeover because I have like
Yep.
a bunch of healthcare people that have reached out
Hmm.
to me since I'm producing some other healthcare shows. And I
Sure.
obviously healthcare is of the utmost concern right now in the country.
Right.
So even if you don't change the title of your show, you can have weeks where you do something totally different.
Yeah. Most definitely. And for me, like I have to do that because I just get bored. Over time, I'm just like, I have other stuff I could be doing, you know?
And back to the whole like pressure thing. So I feel like there's pressure around episode 50, episode 100,
Yeah.
when you reach 10,000 downloads, when you reach 20,000 downloads, when
Yeah.
you have X number of followers. Like, how can we alleviate that and just show up, have fun, talk about things that interest us, and build relationships?
And the other thing is, I found this. Maybe you can speak to this. Is that you may go a while with like, okay, we did this episode, and maybe it's like lightly promoted by the other person. And then you get one person who like is like in love with their episode
Oh,
and they just can't
yes.
stop talking about it. They share it and it just like boosts you hard. I find those people are not that common though, at least to me in my
Yeah,
experience.
they really aren't. I definitely know like my 20 people, like my 20 biggest fans
Yeah,
everywhere. And God
exactly.
bless those people because they
Yes.
keep you going, and be one of those people.
Be one of those people. I really feel that. And I think that's if you just keep doing it, you're gonna run into more of those people who are like when they go, oh man, I can't wait to share this episode. And they actually do. And they do it with a gusto and excitement that you just weren't even prepared for. You're like, whoa, like, but I think it's rare. I don't think it's common. In my experience, it's not common.
I reached a lady in Cambodia. She's like
Mhm.
one of my biggest fans. God bless her. She has followed me from platform to platform. And let me tell you, I show her love back. I
That's
make her
nice.
videos. I introduced her to my daughter. I share her stuff. I follow her brother.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
Yeah. She
Exactly.
sends me anyone, they're a shoe in. Like
Yeah,
I
it's a
have some
shoe in.
people like that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And it's those people you listen and you don't know, you help podcasters keep doing it. You are the fuel, the jet fuel, the electricity for people like Rena and I, because you actually care about your episode. Because one of the worst things is somebody badly wants to be on and then they just don't do anything about it. They just kind of mail it in and then they don't promote their own episode. I don't get that. Like they wanted to do it. Like,
Yeah. I think we should talk about ways, like really easy ways to make someone's day.
yeah,
So
that's
there's
true.
so many ways.
There
You could
is.
show up on somebody's live and say hi. You
Yeah.
could show up on someone's live and take something that they said and screenshot the live and quote it and share it in your story.
Yeah. Totally true. Most definitely true. And that's why I love these conversations. It's good to like talk about these things because I think as podcasters, we want to talk about like, oh, the best ways to do this episode, how to get this, how to do that. But there's something very natural and native to having doubts about your podcast or feeling like not doing it. And that's the stuff that interests me on some level.
I've had multiple conversations this week about people that have reached out to me and they're like, I have this fantastic idea. Let's talk about it in a month from now.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is stopping you from doing it today? What is
Yeah.
stopping you from doing it tomorrow?
Yeah. That's true. And before I started my podcast, I just had conversations with people on the phone. That's all I did. There's no podcast. It was completely anonymous. I would just chat with somebody. And part of me feels like I will be returning to that primarily at some point. It's funny, sometimes you come back to the things that make the most sense to you in your life. You
So
know.
I'm going to tell you some of the things that have made the most sense out of mine so far. My dad really wanted me to do a Zoom with his mother.
Mm,
I did it a year before I aired it.
yeah.
A year I was sitting on that episode. Then my dad was cleaning out his old factory and found a tape of his dad who had passed away.
Yeah.
And I had that tape transferred, and he talked about similar things to what my
Really?
grandmother talked about. And I
Wow.
was like, I am going to mesh those two and have my dad reflect on what they both said. And it was such a
Wow.
special episode. And I was like, the fact that I have this show and I can show other people that they can do this was
Yeah.
like very special.
That is special. Wow. What a great idea. What a great idea. I love that idea, Rena.
There's so many elderly that would love to have a conversation with you. And my grandmother now cannot tell that story
Yeah. Wow. That's
one
amazing.
year later.
Yeah. Wow. Rena, you got a real special vibe going on. Seriously. Like I know it when I see it, when I hear it. There's certain people that I have connected with. It's just like, it's like a boom explosion when you meet them because they're explosive in a positive way. You're so positive. You're so nice. we've had several like LinkedIn discussions and stuff, and we connect. And that, I think, for me, it summarizes is really the beautiful thing about all this. It's just having
Aw,
more friends, having more connections, having more meaningful relationships with people. That I'm grateful for that.
me too. It really will transform your life.
It will transform your life. Well, listen, it's funny, people like you, I was like, I should have put way more time available for this. I have to get running, but I'm like, oh, this just could have kept going.
I felt like it was perfect.
Yeah, I
It was
know
like, yeah,
it's
I felt like
good.
we gave value and it flowed well. And I'm so happy to
Yeah,
reconnect with you.
me too. I definitely want to have you on again. I just like, that's kind of my thing. I keep going back to the well sometimes with people. I have them on 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I'm like, I can't help it. I just want to talk to you more, like so.
Yeah. And I think letting people eavesdrop on a comfortable conversation is a really
Yeah,
beautiful thing.
most definitely. Well, Rena, listen, it's sure it's evening time where you are. It's evening where I'm at. Please have a wonderful rest of your day.
You
And
too. You too. Thank you so much for having me.
you got it. I'll be in touch with you.
And I'll re-promote it.
Oh, I know you will. That I never worry about. I may not be on Instagram in like a week, but if you don't see me on there, we'd be like, oh, he was a prelude to it. He was ready to jump off, man.
Even if you're not there and I can't tag you, I'd put your name there anyway.
That's nice. That's nice. All right, Rena. You have a wonderful rest of your evening.
You
Okay.
too. Stay
All right.
blessed.
Thanks.